Hey there, folks. We've got another two experiments here in our exploration of famous research in psychology. Today we're going to look at the Hawthorne effect and what has become known in psychological history as the monster study. Now, we've already talked about a couple of experiments that could be considered unethical. The monster study may take the award for that. So let's take a look first at the Hawthorne study, which gives us what is called the Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect is one that was discovered by what today we would call an industrial organizational psychologist. There's a fellow running a factory that hires a psychologist by the name of Henry Landsberger to come in and to help him make his workers more productive. And as you can see, the staff of the factory was mostly female, and they're making telephones. And so Landsberger comes in and basically is given permission to do whatever he thinks is necessary to increase productivity. So what he's going to do is he's going to split the employees into a control group who are just going to continue on as normal, and then a group of women who are going to be his experimental group. They're going to be taken to a different part of the factory, and he's going to get a chance to mess with the working conditions. So basically, he's going to compare the productivity of the ladies in these new conditions to the ones in normal conditions. And this is the factory that they're going to work in. Landsberger changes several different things. He messes with the lighting in the space where the experimental group is working. Productivity goes up. The ladies have been given a 15-minute break during the course of the day. He gives them two. Productivity goes up. Basically, anything he was trying was making productivity go up. And so he figures out pretty quickly that it's not necessarily what he's doing, but it's that he's doing something. And so because these ladies are getting these things, they feel a need to be more productive in their work. As a matter of fact, the only thing that caused them to balk was him giving them an additional break. They actually came to him and said, "We don't want this break," because they couldn't maintain the productivity that they had started to take so much pride in. So imagine those of you with jobs going to your boss and saying, no, you're giving me too many breaks. But what this showed us was this idea of if workers feel valued, if they feel like steps are being taken to improve their working conditions, that they will, in fact, be more productive. And so that has become known in psychological history as the Hawthorne effect. The other one here is the monster study. This was done in 1939 by the University of Iowa. There's a guy named Wendell Johnson and his grad assistant, a lady named Mary Tudor, are going to do this. And it's billed as a study of children and speech. But you're going to see pretty quickly why this is controversial. First of all, the subjects, 22 orphan children. Now, one of the protections that we have in place today is if children are going to be used in any kind of capacity like this, their parents are made aware of what's going on because the parent is the advocate for the child. So by taking orphan children, you're almost removing one of those layers of protection. Of these 22 orphan children, 10 are marked as stutterers. That was kind of a generic term that the experiment was using for anybody with a speech impediment. But they're going to split them into two groups. So 22 kids, two groups. The control group is going to meet once or twice a week with Mary Tudor, and they are given positive feedback about their academic and speech development. She's basically pouring into these kids, talking about what a wonderful job they're doing, how great things are, and really, just pouring all kinds of positivity into their lives. That means, though, that the experimental group isn't getting that. The experimental group is getting negative feedback. Even the children that don't naturally have a speech problem are told that they're becoming more difficult to understand. And so you've got these kids, and it's just negative feedback being poured in um, about their academic performance and speech, and then they wanted to see what would be the effects. Well, see, here's part of the problem with this is that this is kind of a no-brainer, right? Well, if people do get positive feedback on something, they're going to feel better about themselves. Duh, right? Who doesn't, right? If somebody gives us negative feedback, it makes us feel bad about ourselves, especially an authority figure. Do you really need to do a study? Do you really need to mess with these kids to do this? So, biggest problem you've got is picking the kids that you picked, and then basically what they're going to do is they're going to end up leaving these kids high and dry at the end of the study. There's no debrief, and so they're just kind of left wondering what's going on. This is a quote from one of the participants, or about one of the participants. It was very difficult to get her to speak, although she spoke very freely the month before. And so these kids that had been with no problems a month before, with just a little bit of this negative reinforcement, had started to retreat within themselves. A and B students became DNF students. Now on the flip side, the performance of the ones that were getting the positive feedback went way up. Interestingly, the effect was not just academic, though. These kids started to act out, get in trouble at school and in the orphanage, and that sort of thing. So we saw a connection with that as well. So like I said, all kinds of problems with this one. You're harming these subjects. You're picking subjects who are orphans, which means they don't have that extra layer of protection. It's a big deal. And then you're leaving them high and dry without some type of debrief and saying, look, you don't really have a speech problem, or even giving that other group this positive feedback to try and bring them back up. The experiment is so controversial that 6 of the experimental group are awarded $925,000 apiece later on in life when they sue the university for the study. None of them developed long-term speech impediments, and Wendell Johnson and Mary Tudor continued to defend their study that they had found out some really important stuff. But like I said, in psychological history, it becomes known as the monster study, just because it's basically a what not to do if you want to experiment with human beings. Now, as you can tell from some of these experiments we've seen, it is a lot harder in this day and age to experiment with human beings. Probably a good thing, because we didn't really prove we could handle it before those protections were in place. So again, head over to the playlist. Got a couple of videos here for you to help illustrate these experiments.